Hi, Brian White, Managing Broker, Realty One Group, Tempe, Arizona, with video part two of two. The no Arizona purchase contract goes into effect February 1st, 2017. First off, a big change in the spuds. Spuds shall now be delivered 3 days, not 5 days in the previous contract after acceptance, with the buyers having 5 days after delivery or the end of the inspection period, whichever is later, to accept or reject your seller disclosure. Again, 3 days after acceptance is the delivery, 5 days after delivery or the end of the inspection period, whichever is later, for the buyer to accept. Better reason than ever for your sellers to complete the seller's property disclosure statement while you're taking the listing. Remember, delivery is not putting it in the MLS. You must hand deliver, email, fax, or mail the spuds to constitute delivery and start these timeframes into effect. FERPTA. This is the first of two sections in the contract that addresses FERPTA. This is specifically for the seller. We want to make sure we give our seller the guidance to get to the appropriate accountants, lawyers, or tax experts so they get the advice they need. In a perfect world, they'd get their TIN number started so they can get in front of the tax issue completely. Remember, Canada Revenue Agency shares information with the U.S. Internal Revenue Service. Your Canadian clients will not avoid the taxes, as Canada Revenue will garnish for the U.S. Internal Revenue Service. Better reason than ever to not give as much advice about FERPTA, but put your clients with the appropriate experts so that the liability doesn't fall on top of you. Now for what you've been waiting for. Warranted items are no longer in the purchase contract. Buyers still have an inspection period. Properties will be sold in their present physical condition. I would use present physical condition versus as is, because as is can have a very negative connotation. How the buyer sees the property and the items that are working when the buyer sees it shall be working at close of escrow. The parties may but do not have to enter into negotiations with regards to repairs. We still have the same BINSR minus the warranted items section. The parties can agree to do repairs, negotiate some repairs, no repairs, or a credit in lieu of repairs. We still must give the seller the opportunity to do repairs rather than simply demanding a credit, as that's renegotiating the contract. If you are doing a credit, remember the credit needs to be on an addendum, because the BINSR itself is not part of the purchase contract and does not change the terms. If your buyer is getting closing costs contribution from the sellers, I would contact the lender as soon as possible if you're asking for a credit, to make sure that the credit combined with the closing cost concessions does not exceed the maximum allowable amount of funds from outside the transaction that the buyer can have. We have had transactions in the past where money's been left on the table or it's been very close. So any transaction with a seller credit along with closing costs, I would make sure you speak with the lender to make sure that that all can fall under the same totals and be acceptable to the lender for the full amount. Again, let's not use as is but present physical condition. Be careful with the physical condition of the property when you're showing before you're writing. Pictures would be a very good idea, especially for personal property. And again, as always, if you're asking for a credit, please use an addendum. Flood zones are now mentioned in the purchase contract. Buyers need to be aware that flood insurance may be required for the property, and flood insurance can be very expensive. They'll want to contact the lender and their insurer to verify if the property is in a flood zone, and if so, the amount of flood hazard insurance, because this could exceed the monthly budget amount they're willing to pay to live in the property. Buyer disapproval, the BINSR. Contract specifies the buyer shall deliver to seller specific notice of the items disapproved and a buyer's signature. In the past, some buyer's agents have simply said the buyer elects to cancel. Some agents have delivered a BINSR without a buyer's signature. They must have a specific reason and a buyer's signature to have a clear cancel. Now, if they're in violation of any of those two items or both, seller shall deliver a cure notice. Buyer's agent shall issue a new BINSR rectifying what's being cured. Buyer can then get their earnest money back. Home warranty is now split possibly in the contract with an extra box, and there's a buyer required initial section as well. FERPTA, this is the buyer's warning. This section specifically says that the buyers agree to participate in the FERPTA process and will sign any documents necessary for successful close of escrow. We really need to get our buyers in front of attorneys, accountants, financial experts so that they understand the full ramifications of signing off on FERPTA waivers or participating in the FERPTA process. We need to get this completed during the inspection period or any other period where they have contingencies, because once they get to close of escrow, the buyers will not be able to cancel or refuse to participate with FERPTA as it is now designated in the contract that they agree to. Cure period is now clarified. If the escrow company or recorder's office is closed on the last day of the cure period, close of escrow now can be the next business day where they are both open. In the past, this has been a big question between holidays and long weekends and what happens if you time out on a non-bank day. Now it's clear in the contract that should your cure notice expire on a holiday, bank holiday, a long weekend, that the buyers now have the next business day both are open to perform. We've got a bunch of extra lines in 8A now. That section's larger than ever. That was done to balance out the contract and make it a full 10 pages. Please understand that the more you write there, the more you can expose yourself to liability. And sometimes when you think you're closing one door, you're actually opening another. So with language on Section 8A, this would be a great idea to speak with your broker to get some advice on specific language to use so you don't cause more problems than you solve. Lead-based paint. Contract specifically says lead-based paint must be signed on the same document and may not be signed in counterpart. People have tried this in the past. I know there's issues with clients out of town, out of state, unavailable, but we must have all the signatures for lead-based paint on one document. It's now a 10-page purchase contract. This is just a note to your buyers to make sure that all 10 pages are included and in front of them when they're signing off. There's a second space for teams in buyer's agents on 444 and 445. That's going to help everybody out because this has been an issue in the past. Counter offer section clarified. Seller must sign and deliver both the offer and the counter offer. In the past, some people have gotten sloppy and just tried to deliver the counter offer rather than the full offer plus the counter offer document. This will give people clarity on the correct process. Best practices going forward. Here's some advice from the broker group on things we'd like you to consider. Don't talk about the old contract. It's gone as of February 1st. Within all your zip forms, it will fail to appear, and the only thing you'll have access to is the new contract. Explain the process to your buyers and sellers. Remind the sellers that they do not have to do anything, and remind the sellers of the hazards of losing a buyer and starting over because of their flat refusal to do repairs. You may have some clients that have done transactions in the past under the old documents with warranted items, but I wouldn't bring that up until they do, because discussing how it used to be simply isn't beneficial. We need to do a better job of explaining closing costs for sellers and for buyers and the contributions. These discussions will really help your process now, as without the required repairs, I'm expecting we're going to see a lot more seller concessions in lieu of repairs. With buyers, be careful again of those total outside contribution limits. If you're getting repair credit and closing costs, you could exceed the maximum allowed by the lender for outside dollars. Best practices continued for listings. We're going to suggest you consider a limited or mechanical home inspection. Many sellers now want the top of the market price for their properties, and to do this, you're not going to want to have buyers come in and get an inspection and have a significant amount of items listed, especially major systems. For buyers, that home inspection should really include having an AC tech, pool company, or other specific experts as needed for the inspection itself. This is also going to help eliminate home warranty issues because you've had an expert rather than just the home inspector with the cursory inspections that are done. Your best outcome, every deal closes with a home warranty in place at close of escrow. Home warranties on houses at close of escrow is a fantastic way to limit or avoid liability for realtors. And the finish for now. For sellers to get top of the market, home inspections really need to be clean and limited in their findings. That's why we're suggesting the limited mechanical inspections. For FHA and VA buyers, seller credits will likely become even more common. We've also got to be careful of repairs that could be called out by the appraisers. Remember, we must give the sellers the opportunity to do repairs or credit the buyers, just like before. That part of the BINSR has not changed. And again, if getting a credit, an addendum is required. A lot of these ideas are actually generated from watching the response of other brokers to the new contract, conversations with other agents, and the broker group. Remember, we can't make people do much of anything, which is why we've got to sharpen our pencils and negotiate better than ever. Thank you. This is part 2 of 2, New Arizona Purchase Contract, Arizona, in effect February 2017.